First Class Productions.
In 2001, Spyro was in a really strange place. The PlayStation trilogy was done, Insomniac had moved on. Suddenly, this purple dragon, who just a year earlier was soaring through full 3D worlds on PS1, found himself crammed onto a brand new handheld with 2 face buttons, a screen smaller than a postcard, and one uncomfortable question hanging in the air. Can Spyro even work like this? Spyro Season of Ice, developed by Digital Eclipse, was his very first Game Boy Advance adventure, and for me, it's almost a blank spot. My brother owned it back then and I played it for a few minutes, picked up some gems, and that was it, which means I'm coming at this almost completely fresh. This time I played the entire game on the Game Boy Player on GameCube, giving it the best possible chance to prove itself. Join me as I find out if this is the moment Spyro successfully reinvented himself for handhelds.
GFrom, the gamer, the legend, he's come to show you the way in this world of games. GFrom Reviews.
Season of Ice picks up right after Year of the Dragon, with Spyro and friends doing what all heroes do between apocalyptic magical battles. Absolutely nothing. He's on vacation with Sparks, Bianca and Hunter when they get a distress call from Zoe the fairy. Turns out the Rhinox are back and someone has decided to give the fairy world a frosty new makeover. All fairies are frozen solid and Bianca has lost her spellbook because that's her thing now. So Spyro has to gear up, hop into the fairy realms and start melting ice cubes. Despite being jammed into a Game Boy Advance cartridge, Season of Ice sticks surprisingly close to the original formula. You've still got your glide, your hover, your flame breath, your charge. Jumping and gliding are on A, fire breath on B, charging on the R shoulder button, and you can even tilt the camera slightly with L, which is adorable because it gives the illusion of camera control. But it works. The gameplay loop is classic Spyro. Explore colorful worlds, roast some Rhinox, hoover up gems like a purple Dyson, and rescue fairies trapped in ice. There are 100 fairies and 7,000 gems scattered across the game, which means if you're a completionist, your weekend just disappeared. Fairies aren't just shiny collectibles either, they're your key to progress. Need 20 fairies to get through that portal? Better go back to do some spring cleaning in Autumn Fairy Home. Speaking of which, Season of Ice splits its levels across seasonal hub worlds. Each one has portals to several themed levels, and you can approach them in whatever order your fairy count allows. Now, the biggest change and the one that might trigger some muscle memory trauma is the camera. This is isometric Spyro. Fixed angle, top-downish, pseudo 3D terrain. It's a clever workaround for the GBA hardware and it actually allows for surprisingly large complex levels with real verticality. Hills, ledges, floating platforms, it's all here. The worlds are lush and packed with foliage, treasure and bad guys. It almost feels more free-roaming than the PlayStation games, but let's see how it actually plays. You kick things off in Autumn Fairy Home, the game's first hub world and your official tutorial playground. It's peaceful, enemy-free, and filled with talkative fairies who, while eager to share their thoughts, mostly deliver the magical equivalent of elevator small talk. Thanks for saving me. Did you know the sky is blue? Great, Grace. Glad you're free. The hubs are nice and chill. You can wander around at your own pace, get used to Spyro's slightly slippery diagonal movement, and, if you're anything like me, mess up your first glide because you misjudged the depth by roughly a continent. Luckily, in the hub worlds, you can't die. No bottomless pits, no lives lost. Spyro just gets plopped back onto solid ground by fairy magic. It's baby mode. I fully support baby mode. Hunter's here too, doing his usual routine. He pops in to explain how gliding and hovering works. Also lurking around is Moneybags, who has somehow weaseled his way into yet another realm despite being canonically bankrupt like twice. I don't care what you're selling, I'm not funding another bear yacht. Inside each level, there's always a set of themed objects you need to flame to unlock a fairy. In this one, it's pumpkins. Harmless, right? Except once you flame the last one, the game yanks you across the map with no warning. Hope you weren't in the middle of something. Now, this first level took me about 20 minutes. And not because it's hard, half the time was me combing every inch of the map looking for the last missing gems. The level's big and the camera is very zoomed in. You see about 5 meters in any direction at all times, which would be fine if the scenery wasn't doing its best impression of repeating a desktop background. But in spite of that, as a first level, it's fine. The controls are responsive, the layout is forgiving, and the stakes are low. The first real level I dove into was Mermaid Coast, where I was immediately greeted by Steffi the Mermaid and her one request: eliminate every Rhinoc on the beach. The enemies here aren't exactly putting up a fight. In classic Spyro tradition, the little ones take one look at the dragon and sprint in the opposite direction. The level's flaming targets this time are sandcastles and lighthouses. Is that frog on speed? What? Touched the water and you die? And when I respawned, I noticed something horrifying. The sandcastles are back. The key for the treasure chest? Gone. The only things that persist are the gems, fairies, destroyed enemies, and lighthouses for whatever reason. Why? The fairies used to be checkpoints. Has their checkpoint magic frozen over too? This design choice means if you haven't collected the fairy tied to an objective yet, dying resets nearly everything. And Mermaid Coast has a lot of water. Water that kills you instantly. So if you misjudge a glide or the isometric angle decides to betray you, it's all gone. You're starting over. Again. So now you're creeping through the level like it's a minefield. Terrified of slipping one tile too far and resetting your progress. It kills the pace. Every time you finish a task, Spyro is yanked back to the quest giver's location without warning. Which sounds helpful, but is mostly just jarring. When you finally clear out all the Rhinocs, a portal appears so you can exit the level. Or you just pause and leave manually because you've had enough. Mermaid Coast is not a strong first impression. Not unless you enjoy retracing your steps every time the water sneezes into your direction. Lava Prairie brings back the cavemen, and honestly, bless them. One of them warns you about incoming pterodactyls, which can only be defeated through a very specific and completely ridiculous method. Flame cactus bombs to roll them onto geysers, launching them skyward like prehistoric bottle rockets. It's slow, clunky, and not even remotely satisfying. What the hell was that? What a cheap bastard. He threw a giant rock at me from off screen. No warning, no chance to react, just rock to the face. Aside from that bit of rudeness, the level was astonishingly straightforward. Decent layout, not too punishing, and somehow the lava doesn't melt you instantly. Market Mesa on paper had promise. It's floating in the sky, it's got llamas wearing funny hats. I was already thinking game of the year.
Carl, that kills people!
I love purple dragons. Oh, you wouldn't love me if my skin color was green?
That's racist.
Did you hear that? That thief is taunting me! Now, if you've seen my previous Spyro reviews, you know I love a good thief chase. The thrill, the tension, the satisfaction of finally catching the little weasel. This is punishment. First, he won't shut up. Ever! The same two voice clips over and over, on loop with no pause. Second, he's fast. It feels almost impossible to catch up to him. Just look at it. Third, and this is where I started to lose my mind, the charging controls. You try to adjust course and instead you crash into everything except the thief who just glides ahead taunting you with his vocal fry. Eventually I got him after 4 minutes by accident, and instead of feeling proud, I just stared at the screen in silence, emotionally drained. Then I cleaned up the rest of the level. So I killed all the Rhinocs. Pierre! What even is this? Slippery son of a bitch. But hey, at least now I know there's a platform down there. Progress. After one more accidental death caused by a wrong button press and a little breakdown over the words game over, I respawned in the hub world. Thankfully you keep your fairies and gems, but all the enemies are back upon re-entering a level. Lyle, a very polite llama, asks me to ring some bells in the correct order. Fine, I do that. Nothing happens. Why? Here's my theory. This game loves to interrupt you. Characters don't wait for input to talk. They ambush you. The second you step into their bubble, boom, forced conversation. So after I rang the first bell, Lyle cut in with this blah 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 again, probably resetting the sequence. And of course he's standing directly in the way like a speed bump with opinions. I hate Market Mesa, I truly do. What started as a level with style and personality turned into a half-hour-long descent into frustration. Each homeworld comes with its own speedway, and normally I'm into that. On PlayStation, they're a great little break from the usual gem-chasing madness. Here though, they've been reimagined. In Stone Age Speedway you get two choices, normal and hard. I went with normal first. The gameplay shifts into a completely different genre, basically turning Spyro into a fighter jet. Think Space Harrier, but with more flapping. First up, you fly through rings, earning gems as you go. Then you start spitting fireballs at waves of bats. You can hold down the fire button, but it's actually faster and more efficient to mash it. Yellow bats give you a little time back, blue bats drop gems, and if you crash into anything, you lose precious seconds. Then things start getting weird. Suddenly there are these things. I don't know what they are. Meteors start coming at you from the front, and some can be shot for bonus time. Finally, you reach a boss who's straight out of Fireworks Factory. You shoot him, he gets smaller. Keep him at a distance or he gets a little too cozy. I didn't think this was bad at all. It takes a little adjustment, and it's weird that you don't get the gems instantly after defeating enemies, but instead have to go catch them. Hard mode skips the gem collection and just throws less time at you while ramping things up slightly. I beat it on my third try, so it wasn't brutal. I had a good time. This might be the most fun I've had in the game so far. It's time to do what no one ever wants to do and hand over gems to moneybags. This unlocks a Sparks level called Ant Farm. If you've played Year of the Dragon, you already know the drill. It's the same setup. Top-down shooter, maze-like layout, hunt for colored keys, find power-ups, and blast everything that twitches. It's not reinventing anything, but at least it's consistent. One improvement right off the bat is the music. Unlike on PS1, where every Sparks level weirdly just played their title theme on repeat, this one actually has music that fits the setting. The controls feel a bit more slippery, but it's manageable. And to the game's credit, checkpoints exist here. I had started to believe those were just a thing of the past, like instruction manuals. The boss is a grasshopper that gave me more trouble than any of the PS1 Sparks bosses combined. It actually moved around and fought back, which I wasn't prepared for. I can't say I'm thrilled about this level overall, but it was functional, didn't waste my time, and most importantly, didn't kill me for touching a puddle. So yeah, I'll take it. And with that, we officially say goodbye to Autumn Fairy World. It turns out some guy named Grendor stole Bianca's spellbook. He used it on himself, which backfired spectacularly and gave him 2 heads and a raging migraine. His solution? Freeze 100 fairies to harvest their magical energy for a potion. Have you tried ibuprofen? Maybe a nap? Kidnapping an entire magical species seems a bit extreme for what is essentially just poor self-care. With 26 fairies under my belt, it's time to move on to Winter Fairy Home. You'll need 44 to unlock the next world, so there's still work to do. I love a good winter setting, and this one doesn't drop the snowball. It's calm and cozy. I found everything without much fuss, and the level design is actually pleasant. For a brief, shining moment, I felt like maybe the worst was behind me. If only I knew these would be my final peaceful moments before everything started to unravel. Hummingbird Fort. Where do I even begin? This place is a complete disaster. Just look at the map I found on darkspyro.net. There are a million tiny islands scattered around, all blending into one another. Everything looks the same, and the elevation differences are next to impossible to read, and the camera is doing zero favors. Enemies now shoot projectiles, and to my horror, they knock you back. I expect that in 2D games like Castlevania, where it's part of the fun pain balance, but here it's just mean. It's like Spyro's gliding on butter. What broke me was the campfire task. You have to flame a bunch of them, but the game doesn't track how many you've lit. So now it's a memory game. Good luck remembering which identical little platform had the last fire pit, while also trying not to die. And if you do die, congratulations, everything resets and you get to do it all over again. I spent 50 miserable minutes in this level and died 24 times. I skipped through the same hummingbird dialogue so often I could recite it backwards, missed the same jumps repeatedly, and took cheap hits from off-screen snipers. And through it all, I stared at this leafy green fever dream. I haven't been this irritated by a level in a while. This better be the low point of the game, because if it gets worse than Hummingbird Fort, I might actually snap. Now we're getting flashbacks to Bamboo Terrace. Panda Gardens isn't as bad as Hummingbird Fort, and that's already high praise. The platforms are bigger, and that alone reduces the chance of flinging yourself into a bottomless pit every 5 seconds. That said, I still managed to spend over 30 minutes here, 4 of which were dedicated entirely to chasing down another thief, while slowly losing hope and sanity. Question mark jars make their return, working just like they did in the PS1 games. You break one, it shows you where the next one is, and you keep following the trail. Of course it resets entirely if you die, because naturally. Depth perception is still a mess, water is still instant death, and if you're hoping for a sudden spike of joy, you're not going to find it here. But for what it is, it's a solid level by Season of Ice standards. Honey Marsh brings back the pain almost immediately. Aside from the usual nonsense, it's also just hard to look at. Too many colors, way too saturated. There are a few nice touches like the little honey rivers, but that's about where the compliments end. The professor shows up here too, muttering something about bees and time travel because apparently you can't say one without the other. One of his quests involves luring bees into flowers. Sounds easy, but it's not. You flame a beehive and an angry bee storms out and locks onto you. They're faster than you'd expect and you have to carefully kite them to flowers, but every flower only accepts one bee. And considering I died 20 times while navigating this sticky mess, you can imagine how done I was by the end of it.
That is a lot of bait.
Also, what's the deal with the giant bees? If they touch Spyro, he bounces around the screen like he's on a pinball table. There's no rhythm to it, no clear recovery. This whole level is a headache. Visually overwhelming, mechanically irritating, and full of stinging regret. Hopefully Ice Age Speedway is just as chill as the first one. Well, not quite. It starts off familiar enough with another swarm of bats, then suddenly I'm firing at what I can only describe as Care Bears with propeller hats. I don't know where they came from or what they want,
But they must be destroyed.
After that, it's a batch of rings, followed by those ugly spiders from Crystal Glacier making an airborne comeback, and finally a boss fight with not one but two snow dragons. Not the worst. But hard mode? That's where everything collapsed. I still had to do all the same waves, but the clock was tighter, the enemies meaner, and that boss decided to be allergic to my attacks. I'd usually make it to the boss, but was constantly out of time before I could finish their job. The snow dragons keep their distance, and when they finally get close enough to hit, I'd take a hit. After 9 attempts and growing concern for my A button, I threw in the towel. Couldn't beat it. Which means I'm now short 1 fairy. Surely that won't come back to haunt me. It's just 1 fairy. I mean, it's not like the game would lock me out of the ending for missing a single fairy. After giving moneybags more of my hard-earned gem collection, Sparks heads off to Wasp City, which, judging by the enemy roster, is located right next to Ant Farm because the same ants are back at it again. We do get some wasps this time too, just to mix it up a little. And shocking absolutely no one, the boss is a giant bee.
Giant bee, you're lovely.
It's a fairly easy stage overall, nothing too tricky about the layout or the enemies, and the boss didn't put up much of a fight. That said, I still managed to die 4 more times after beating it because I was so laser focused on vacuuming up the last few gems that I rushed through it. Classic end of level sloppiness. But hey, mission complete. Off we go to the next home world. Or so I thought. Nope, surprise detour, it's Grendor's lair. And Grendor, still rocking 2 heads and still very much over it. If his headache is anything like the one I've got from playing through the first half of the game, I completely sympathize. So what's the deal with this boss fight? Grendor's in the center of the arena surrounded by a ring of fireballs which he starts launching at you. You have to wait for a gap, then charge. Rinse, repeat. It sounds simple, and yeah, it kind of is, but it still managed to be irritating. You're just waiting around for openings and hoping the controls don't betray you when it's go time. It takes 5 hits to bring him down, which doesn't sound like much until you realize each cycle feels like it lasts a full calendar year. On the bright side, there are sheep hopping around the outer ring to restore your health, which I only noticed after getting cooked a few times. Once you know the pattern, it's totally doable, but that doesn't make it fun. It's just a slow, repetitive slog. After the fight, Bianca shows up to say that Grendor's wand is missing. Great, add it to the list. Time to breathe in Spring Fairy Home, and it's exactly what I needed. The layout is clean, the paths make sense, and I actually found everything without tearing my hair out or rage gliding into a void. Nothing here is annoying, broken, or cruel. It's just a pleasant, well-paced breather level that respects your time and doesn't kick you while you're down. Thank you, Spring Fairy Home. You're the emotional support hub I didn't know I needed. In Roman City, you get to reunite with the lions from Sunny Villa, still as friendly as ever, and now living in a city with catastrophic plumbing issues. Water is everywhere. Every single one of my deaths in this level was thanks to a quick dip in the drink. Thankfully, there isn't a lot of gliding required, so outside of the liquid death traps, it's actually a pretty chill level. That is until you run into the mandatory thief chase. Finding the guy is a puzzle in itself, and once you do, good luck. The layout is tight, the turns are sharp, and one wrong step sends you straight into the splash zone. I don't think I've ever hated a thief this much. Just pure loathing. But aside from that train wreck of a segment, the level's not too bad. Roman City might not make the favorites list, but it's a solid entry with only mild trauma. Time Machine Lab is another one of those levels that tests both your eyesight and your patience. The professor is here again, tinkering with yet another time machine. Visually, this level is exhausting, a chaotic mess of color and clutter. And structurally, it's Hummingbird Fort all over again, just with more trial, more error, and more reasons to scream into a pillow. It's all disconnected islands floating in space, with the constant threat of falling into a bottomless pit. Reaching certain parts of the map is pure guesswork, relying entirely on finding that one specific platform that connects to another platform 2 counties over. There was one jump I was absolutely convinced was the solution. I lined it up, glided perfectly, and missed. Tried again, missed. Tried 10 more times, still missed. Thank goodness the game drops an extra life right there every time, or I would have seen more game over screens than actual gameplay. I finally caved and looked up a video to see how other people were doing it, and guess what? It was the correct jump. So why didn't it work? I have no idea. After enough tries, the game just gave it to me, like it finally felt sorry for me. No, don't teleport me, there's still a gem out there. No! Now I have to do it again. Oh, it worked.
That just raises more questions than answers.
Beyond that miracle, the level just keeps piling on. The worst offender is flaming all the pens in one go. You have to find them all without dying and without forgetting which ones you've already done because there's no checklist and no mercy. The layout is so burned into my brain now that I could probably draw the entire thing from memory and still get lost in it. I spent an hour here and died 32 times. I've never been so mentally fried by a Spyro level. Nothing else in this series even comes close. This is the worst Spyro level I've ever played. I don't care how many time machines you build, Professor, this one's staying in the past.
I really need a break at this point, just something, anything to convince me this game has a soul.
Maybe the mighty Spyro god heard my desperate pleas because Twilight Bulb Factory, against all odds, isn't that bad. In fact, I can't believe I'm saying this. I didn't die. Not even once. Go ahead, alert the authorities. Put my name in the credits. I'll wait. I played this one with the caution of a bomb technician. The background is still trying to outshine the sun with all its sparkles, but I managed to stay sane. Structurally, yes, it's more floating islands again, but for once, they're accessible. I didn't have to perform any magical blind glides or make leaps of faith into the void. And look who's here, the haiku dudes from Spooky Swamp. Sadly, no poetry this time. Twilight Bulb Factory ended up being a small pocket of peace in this otherwise hostile campaign. It wasn't spectacular, but after Time Machine Lab, it felt like a warm bath and a therapy session rolled into one. Continuing the very welcome trend of not trying to ruin my day, Aqua Age Speedway is about as forgiving as the first one. You've got your rings, you've got balloons, you've got jellyfish, some crabs, then even more jellyfish, and finally a water dragon boss who's more bark than bite. I had a little trouble sweeping up all the gems, but I managed to beat hard mode on my second try. What's baffling is how much easier this one is compared to Ice Age Speedway. Not sure why the difficulty took a nosedive here, but I'm not gonna complain. Sometimes a game just gives you a win and you smile, nod, and back away slowly before it changes its mind. Moneybags, just shut up and take my money. I'm too tired to argue and too deep in to pretend I have a choice. Caterpillar Gardens is what you'd expect. Another Sparks level, more ants because this is their franchise now, and a big bug boss who's not getting invited back for the sequel. Let's move on before the ants get any more ideas. Summer Fairy Home is the final hub world.
Thank God we're in the home stretch now.
This one's a bit of a sprawl, the kind of layout that looks manageable at first but slowly turns into a gem scavenger hunt from hell. Some of the glides here are just awkward too, with platforms positioned at weird angles. Definitely not the satisfying final hub I was hoping for. Just one more scenic headache on the road to the end. Star Park has you collecting what I can only describe as glowing Wi-Fi symbols so a bunch of penguins can launch an observation satellite. Sure, why not? I just nod politely at the weirdness. This level didn't give me any trouble. Platform heights were actually readable for once, the colors weren't trying to blind me, and everything just worked. I cruised through it with 0 deaths, which is exactly how I like it. A clean, straightforward level with space penguins and decent lighting. More of this, please. In Dusty Trails, you're helping a group of skunks deal with a rhinoc infestation. I usually like desert levels. They've got that dry, sunburned charm. But here, everything blends together into one big sandy blur. It's disorienting. Some of the glides are especially rough, with ledges that look like they're the same height until Spyro casually swan dives into a wall. How cheap was that? That said, the final thief chase somehow turned out to be the easiest in the whole game. I caught him in under a minute with minimal trauma. Small victories. Dusty Trails ends up being a very mid-tier level. It's just kinda there, kicking up dust and wasting your time in beige. To my surprise, there's one less main level in Summer Ferry Home, so instead of dragging things out, we're diving straight into Space Age Speedway. I'd heard whispers about this one before, how it's supposed to be borderline impossible, so I went in fully expecting pain. It starts with UFOs that fly away from you, then I don't even know what comes next. Little alien things? Robots? Just stay on the right side and shoot the small ones first, that's the strategy. Then it's pogo stick creatures, which I'm not making up, followed by rings and a fleet of planes. And finally, a dragon boss who's both fast and weirdly aggressive. Still, I managed to beat him on my 4th try and got all the gems after one more clean run. Felt good. Briefly. Then I hit hard mode. Sweet baby Jesus. This is where the difficulty spikes into outer orbit. Getting to the boss is the easy part, but actually beating him? The guy refuses to stay still, I keep taking hits, and the time pressure is relentless. You've got roughly 2 minutes of non-stop thumb mashing to even reach the boss, and by then my A button thumb felt like it was about to fall off. It's physically exhausting. I tried, I really did, but after a string of failures and a sore hand, I decided to walk away. It doesn't feel outright impossible, but maybe I've just hit my limit. Sometimes you have to know when to fold and spend your remaining energy on something that doesn't give you carpal tunnel and a bruised ego. After giving moneybags a full 20% of our hard-earned gem fortune, Sparks gets one last chance to shine in Beetle Burrows. And surprise, it's more ants. Why would it be anything else? Either I'm finally getting the hang of these Sparks levels, or this one's just unusually chill, because it turned out to be the simplest of the bunch. The only hiccup came at the end with the big beetle boss who seems to be unreasonably angry. I mean, yeah, I did wipe out his entire extended family and every ant he's ever known, but come on, overreact much? And with that, Sparks' run comes to an end. I'm not sad to see it go. He did his job, shot some bugs, and didn't make me hate life. We'll call it a win. Final boss. Wait, hold on, what? You need all 99 fairies to unlock the final battle?
You're telling me I've gone through all of this just to hit a glorified 100% gate?
I mean, sure, in the PlayStation games you'd get rewarded for full completion with an extra level or a fun power-up. But locking the final boss behind full completion? That's some straight-up cartoon villain behavior.
To be fair, you don't need all the gems, but still. So now I've got a choice. Walk away or force myself to beat the 2 stages I swore I was done with. What's the mature option?
Yeah, take a wild guess. Back to Ice Age Speedway I went, and to my absolute shock, all that trauma training from Space Age Speedway must have kicked in, because I beat it on my 2nd try. 7 seconds to spare, no less. Couldn't believe it. I thought I was hallucinating. But then came Space Age Speedway, and that one didn't go down without a fight. I didn't record every attempt, so I can't give you a number, but let's just say it was a lot. However, I did record the run where I finally beat it. It came down to reflexes, memorization, and mashing that shoot button like my life depended on it. Don't get hit, know every pattern, and above else, stay the hell away from that dragon. In hindsight, I wish I would have filmed myself doing it because it was just pure relief. Might be one of my proudest gaming moments in recent memory. That was awful, but I made it, man. Final boss. For real this time. We're back in Grendor's lair, and surprise, it's the exact same fight as before, only now the fireballs are ice and the floor's got a frosty new paint job. Truly groundbreaking stuff. The only real difference is that now it takes 8 hits to win. 8! That's like 5 too many. The fight doesn't evolve and the pattern never changes. You get the same slow loop over and over again until you're questioning whether the reward is worth the brain cells. What makes it harder is that this time you die if you fall off the edge, unlike the first time where the lava saved you if you still had health. When it finally ends, Grendor has a change of heart and decides he doesn't want to be a powerful wizard anymore. Zoe is rescued and casually asks why he didn't just ask her to reverse the spell, and with that, he's back to normal. So this entire game happened because Grendor is bad at talking to people. Incredible. That might be the most realistic part of the story. Miscommunication, still the #1 villain in every universe. The credits roll, all fairies rescued, all gems collected, every ounce of patience tested. It's over. Finally. Except it isn't over, because out of nowhere, Moneybags, greedy, smug, gem-hoarding menace, decides to give all your money back. Why? Because he's scared of Spyro. That's his actual reason. After 3 entire games of shameless extortion, he suddenly remembers he's been shaking down a fire-breathing dragon who's been known to knock him flat without hesitation, and fear kicks in. And just like that, you gain access to Dragonfly X, a bonus minigame. What is it? It's a strange little arcade-style shooter where you control sparks in a top-down arena, and the goal is to destroy a giant spider in the center of the screen. But before you can even touch it, you have to destroy a series of constantly respawning spider webs that act like shields. I imagine there's fun to be had here if you're really into this kind of twitchy retro-style gameplay, but I made it to level 2 and just couldn't bring myself to care. After everything this game has put me through, Dragonfly X felt like a joke I was too tired to laugh at. I'm done. This game is finally, definitively, mercifully over.
The review's not over yet because we still need to talk about the music and sound.
Given the GBA's audio capabilities, Season of Ice actually punches above its weight. The sound effects are clear and varied. No shrill Game Boy Color screeches here. Thanks to digital sample playback, things like jumping, charging, flame breathing and gem collecting sound solid. Stuart Copeland is nowhere to be found here, which makes sense since he was busy not composing for GBA games. In his place we have Robert Baffy and Ed Cosico, and to their credit, they do manage to give Spyro a new handheld vibe. It's whimsical, adventurous, and definitely trying its best to maintain that Spyro energy, just with less guitar and more bit-crushed marimbas. Due to the GBA's 8-bit sample-based audio setup, everything's got that compressed, crunchy texture. And while many of the melodies are catchy, the short loop lengths mean you'll be hearing the same tune over and over again. And again. And then once more for good measure. Unfortunately, the game also recycles tracks across multiple levels, and the more you play, the more noticeable it becomes. Like, I don't hate the song that plays in Time Machine Lab and Space Age Speedway, but I don't want to hear it ever again after listening to it for what feels like hours. Same goes for Ice Age Speedway / Star Park / Beetle Burrows. The single worst track for me has to be Dusty Trails. It sounds like a lullaby that has nothing going for it. Meanwhile, tracks like Panda Gardens and Wasp City are so bland I wouldn't be able to hum them even if you paid me. But credit where it's due, there are a few highlights. Market Mesa and Aqua Age Speedway share a nice little groove that stands out. Mermaid Coast delivers a chill, beachy tune with marimba-style instruments. So yeah, mixed bag. Some tracks you'll enjoy, others will haunt your dreams.
Which is why, to wrap this up properly, it's time to present my completely subjective and entirely necessary top 3 songs from Spyro Season of Ice.
Number 3. The game kicks things off with a cheerful, whimsical melody that immediately sets the tone. It's light and magical and wouldn't feel out of place in Jak and Daxter, which is hilarious considering that game came out a month later. I recorded the gameplay footage in November and this tune still floats into my head uninvited, which says something about its staying power. Number 2. This one hits harder than it has any right to. The boss battle theme is intense, energetic, and full of urgency. Basically, the complete opposite of what's actually happening in the fight. It tricks you into thinking this is going to be an epic showdown, while Grendor's just standing there. Still, the music slaps. Number 1. This track surprised me the most. It's got a dreamy, almost hypnotic quality with just enough rhythmic bounce to keep your head bobbing while you're getting wrecked by bees. There's something oddly soothing about it. Easily my favorite part of this whole game and one of the few things that made me stop and think, hey, I don't regret playing this.
Let's wrap this up.
Spyro Season of Ice is one of those games that constantly makes you question whether you're playing it wrong or if it's just messing with you. After spending over 10 hours combing through its fairy-infested worlds, flaming pumpkins, dodging bees, and cursing every liquid surface, I can say with confidence that it's the latter. The biggest issue here is the camera. It's far too close to be functional in a game where precise gliding and ledge judgment are essential. The L button lets you peek slightly, but that's like trying to navigate using a straw as a telescope.
And somehow, there's no map, not even a hint of one.
So you're left stumbling through repetitive maze-like stages, hoping to find the last gem or fairy by sheer luck. Every time I thought I had a level figured out, I'd misjudge a glide, fall into a pit, and watch my progress evaporate. Objects respawn, keys vanish, and you're forced to replay entire sequences because the game treats death like a factory reset. It's punishing in the worst way. Even after hours of play, the platforming never felt reliable. I misjudged heights constantly. And that shouldn't happen this deep into a Spyro game, especially not to someone who prides themselves on being a glidin' man, glidin' man, glidin' man. And just when I thought I could catch a break, I ran into the completion requirement for the final boss. It's a feature that likely ruined a lot of childhoods. Space Age Speedway alone probably ended more playthroughs than any other obstacle on the GBA. The soundtrack is a mixed bag. While there are a few standout tunes, most of them loop too quickly or repeat across multiple levels. Overall, the audio presentation ranges from fine to forgettable. So what do I like? The level themes are varied and each one has its own little cast of charming weirdos. There's some heart in the world building. It's a plus that you can complete any level on your first visit, like in Spyro 1. And I genuinely enjoyed the Speedways, to a certain extent. They were tough, sometimes unfairly so, but they didn't rely on cruel level layouts or bad glides. They were about reflexes and rhythm. I can respect that. The Sparks levels were decent filler, never amazing, but never awful either.
But overall, I hated this experience. Not just the difficulty, but the lack of payoff.
This game feels like it wants you to suffer for progress without offering much in return. There's no motivation to improve because the reward is usually just another round of pain. It's the kind of game that feels actively hostile at times, like it's daring you to quit out of spite. Among all the Spyro games I've reviewed so far, this one, not surprisingly, lands at the very bottom. I know there are people who love it, whether for nostalgic reasons or because they just happen to click with its mechanics. And that's fine, good for you. I just didn't. It left me irritated, drained, and in serious need of a palate cleanser. I wanted to like it. I went in with an open mind, but by the end, I couldn't wait to be done. Season of Ice now returns to my collection, not as a beloved title, but as a cautionary tale. One I have no intention of revisiting. There is a sequel released just a year later, which I haven't played yet.
I might regret it, but I'm covering it in my next video. Let's hope things improve, because after this, they almost have to.
Hey everyone, this is GFrom. Thank you so much for watching episode 2 of season 6. Feel free to rate, comment, subscribe and follow me on social media. You can also support me on Patreon or become a YouTube member if you like. I'll see you later. Have a nice day.